brothers and sisters, let us pray. Dakila at mapagpala naming Diyos na siyang makapangyarihan sa lahat ng kangalang Yahweh. Kami ay nagpapasalamat sa inyong kadakilaan, Ama, na patuloy niyo kami pinapalakas at pinagabayan at hindi niyo kami pinabayaan. Kami ay hindi man sa isang bubungan, pagkos ay nasa iba't iba naming pamamahay, pero kami ay mayroong isang layunin, ang pag-aralan muli ang salita ninyo, Ama. Na pagkalooban niyo kami ng kalakasan at hindi ng karunungan upang lahat ng aming matutunan sa araw na ito ay aming isa buhay. Sa pamagitan na ibibigay na aral sa amin ng aming kapatid na Mcclure. Naway pagkalooban niyo kami ng peace at kapayapaan sa dako namin, Ama, at manguna ka sa bawat sa amin. Ama, ang lahat mga bagay lubos na yung pinapabot sa tayong pala ng tutong anak, maulay pa namin tagapamagitan at tagilan ito pagligtas ng Panginoong Kristo. Amen. Good afternoon, brothers and sisters in Christ. Today we are all gathered again to celebrate or to put rejoice in ourselves, though we are not in the same houses, but we are gathered with the same vision at the same time ideas. So our brother today is not a local brother. Our speaker today is not from the local country, but a brother from Australia. And before our brother Matthew give us the study, may I call some of the local brothers and sisters or local brothers who are to be giving their expectations for the topic. And by the way, brothers and sisters, our topic or our lesson, our study for today is all about the Egypt in the old times. Okay, may I call on some of the brothers to take to give their expectations. From the Iglesia of Quezon City, Brother John Gabriel Lagasca. John?
Okay na po. Egypt in the time of the Old Testament will surely be a very interesting talk. I'm sure everyone is very excited to listen to Brother Matthew. My expectation this afternoon is that Brother Matthew will take us to a time travel machine to an ancient time. The Pyramid of Egypt is the first thing that I am excited to see. I'm sure everyone is extra excited too, as we are all longing to travel again because we've been locked down for a couple of months now. It is really fascinating to travel back in time and learn more about the Egyptian cultures, beliefs, and biblical events and early writings about their influence on Israelite culture. I have one question that would probably be answered later on. In the Bible, is Egypt really served both as a land of refuge and a land of bondage? Thank you.
Did you want me to start now, sorry? Or was there more questions to come?
Oh, Dom is gone. So wait for Dom for a while.
Hello, Brother Matthew.
Oh, hello. Sorry.
The first part will be given by these young people for the expectations, and then
Oh, sorry.
afterwards, yeah, and then afterwards you can have your 40 minutes for your
No
study.
worries. My apologies.
No, no, no. Thanks,
My apologies.
Dom. Dominador.
Hello, Kuya.
Yeah, tuloy mo na yung expectations. Please.
Ay, sorry po, na-mute pala, nagsasalita. Okay, let us continue our expectations, brothers and sisters. How about Brother Belvic Pantinople from Cebu, Ecclesia? I'm so sorry, I was talking and my device is mute. So sorry, Brother Matthew, for waiting. Okay, Brother
Good
Belvic
afternoon.
from Cebu, Ecclesia, are you in?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. My expectation for today's topic. It is my eager expectation and hope to know more about Egypt, more than the academe has taught us. I know that more of many of us has idea about Egypt, the history of Egypt. Uh, I want to know more about Egypt, its impact, influences, or the significance of Egypt to the world's history, culture, religion, literature, technology, and more to mention. And I expect to answer questions like what could we learn or what life lessons or takeaways we can draw from the story of ancient Egypt that could eventually boast or renew our spiritual life, our morals, our faith for the time being. Last, I expect that we can have self introspection. Introspection. That is to reevaluate or reflect within ourselves by answering these questions. Living life, uh, we're living like Egypt right now. Questions: who are the Egyptians? Or better say, are we the Egyptians? Are we in the right place? Are we in the place of refuge or in the place of bondage? Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Belvic Pantinople, our local brother from Cebu, for your expectation. How about we proceed to the next brother? About Brother Juniper Natividad from Kalilangan Ecclesia.
Long journey first ka lang. My expectation for the day is about how to of Israel go out in Egypt. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Juniper, for giving your expectation for this afternoon's topic. Okay, how about Brother Gisril Inocencio from Bataan Ecclesia? Brother Gisril, are you in? Okay, Brother Gisril, I think Brother Gisril is not available. So from the City Ecclesia is, for my expectation, brothers and sisters, for this afternoon's topic is that Some of us are familiar with the Egypt as to how it served both as a refuge and a threat to the Lord's people in the Old Testament and the New Testament at the same time. Uh, it is the land of so many of our father's children. And my question is there any part of the prophecy that the Egypt took hold or to them, uh, or any promise that God had given to them, contrary to the curse they have experienced before? So that is my expectation, brothers and sisters. I believe that some of our expectations will be answered, and I hope so. These expectations that our local brothers are asking will be given by our brother Matthew Mcclure. So, brothers and sisters, we are going to start our study for this afternoon, and may we all focus and listen to our brother Matthew Mcclure for giving us the talk. By the way, our brother Matthew Mcclure is from Punchbowl Ecclesia, and I think our brother Matthew already visited Philippines before, I think. Okay, let us start. Brother Matthew, are you in?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay.
Is that all working fine?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, your presentation is ready.
Beautiful, thank you. You're absolutely correct. I did visit the Philippines 6 years ago. It was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was brilliant. So it's very nice to see you all again. My grandfather, John Elton, all the time, when are you coming back? They want to see you. They want you there. So he's always on my case to return. But it is lovely to be with you. Thank you so much for having me. So our topic is ancient Egypt, and I teach high school history. So I'm always happy to talk about anything to do with history. So thank you so much for inviting me, and well done on the posters. I was really blown away. I don't know if any of you on at the moment made them, but they were stunning. I showed them to some of the kids at the school, and they said, well done. So really impressive. And I will also try to answer some of those questions that you've asked. Thank you so much for that. And I'm really sorry for interrupting. It was my mistake, and my apologies. So our topic for tonight is ancient Egypt. Does anyone want to share anything that they know about Egypt? What do you think of? Feel free just to call it out. When you hear ancient Egypt, what do you think?
Civilization.
Beautiful. And someone else said pyramids.
Yes, pyramid and architects and aesthetic.
Water systems.
Excellent. You're much better than my school students. Been teaching them this for months and they can't tell me anything. So you're killing it. Well done. Yeah. So Egypt, we know it for pyramids. We know it for the water, the Nile. That's the river. And the beautiful architecture. Lovely. So tonight what we want to do is we want to think, if I lived in Egypt during the Old Testament time, what would have it been like? What would have I maybe seen? What would have I believed if I was an Egyptian? And then we're going to consider the Exodus. So what would have it been like in Egypt when the Exodus occurred? Is there any evidence of the Exodus? How do we know the Bible is reliable? And also in the kings, so like David, Hezekiah, Josiah, what was their relationship to Egypt? As you've asked, Was Egypt a place of refuge for them? Was Egypt a threat? So we'll consider all that. And again, if you want anything answered, just interrupt, unmute yourself, cut me off by all means, and just ask away. And just one thing before we do get started. So I've been to the Philippines. Your English is brilliant. It's far better than my Tagalog, which amounts to very little. And just when we look at history, there's a few words that pop up that aren't sort of common English words. So I use them at work, but I don't really use those words anywhere else. So for example, if I talk about a historical source, just think about like a source of information, a piece of evidence. It might be the pyramids. The pyramids are a source because they show us the architecture, as you've noted. They show us what Egypt, what their buildings were like. You also might hear the word papyrus tonight. Papyrus is just a type of paper, just very old type of paper that the Egyptians wrote on. And a papyrus would be a type of historical source. Just two more, geography. Geography is just like the land. So the Philippines has an island geography. You've got 1,001 islands. So you're just talking about the land around you. And finally, it's more of a slang word. It's not a formal English word, but I will use it tonight, which is fiddle. Like it's a verb. It's a doing word. And when you fiddle, you're getting into someone else's business, usually in a bad way. So, oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? Go away, mind your own business. You say that you're fiddling in someone else's business. Anyway, that aside, when we come to Egypt, it's a big society. It goes for over 3,000 years. And so it gets split up into all these different periods. Now, the big one to remember is underlined. Just remember New Kingdom Egypt. That's just the name for Egypt at the time that a lot of the events in the Bible occurred. And this slide that you can see is just a rough guide. It's not definite. It might be accurate, but it's just a guide as to when did Bible characters live and when did that match up in Egypt's history. And that's just in case you really want to go away and say you're studying King Hezekiah and you want to know, oh, what would have Egypt been like? What would have it been like for Hezekiah? Then you know, oh, I can look at late period Egypt. And again, these names, Second Intermediate, New Kingdom Egypt, they're not normal English words, so don't worry about what does that mean, because they're stuff you don't use every day. Okay, so with Egypt, as I'm sure you know, it's a very long way away from both of us. So for you in Manila, or in the Philippines broadly, but if you flew from Manila to Cairo, Egypt's capital, that would be 15 hours. That's over half your day. It's a fun flight. And same for me in Sydney. It's almost a whole day trying to get to Egypt. And it's much easier just to fly Sydney to Manila, quite a bit shorter. So it's always a much better idea. But in contrast, you'll notice here, Israel is right next door. It's less than an hour flight between the two countries. And it means Egypt's a perfect place to have as either a place of refuge or a place of trial and difficulty. And we're going to see that tonight. Egypt, Israel, right next door to us, next door to each other. Now, again, feel free to call out. If you went to Egypt, imagine you're standing in Egypt, there's the pyramids, you've got Egyptians walking around you that have mosques everywhere, and they'll be doing the Allah, the Islamic prayer. what would the geography, the land around you be like in Egypt? Would you have big mountains, for example? Does anyone want to have a guess? All good. I'll do the hard work for you. So most of Egypt is completely desert. So 98% of it is desert. There's no water there. You can't grow anything on the desert. And as a result, people can't live there. It's useless land, to put it simply. And as one of the brothers noted, there's one exception, which is the Nile. So this beautiful big river flows through part of Egypt, and there's a thin strip of land near this Nile River where you can grow crops and where people can drink water and live. So the point, if you were in Egypt, it would be desert. It would be dry and hot, except for the Nile. In fact, if you take a view of Egypt from space, you see the exact same thing. It's all desert except this tiny little strip where there's this really nice green land full of water and crops that you can, and food to grow. Now, if we're trying to think like it, what would it be like for an Egyptian? This is giving us a big hint. So all Egypt's water comes from the Nile, and this Nile River, it flows from other countries. So all of Egypt's water comes from other nations. They're totally dependent on other countries for all their water. It's like if, say, the Philippines or Australia, we shipped all our water from China. We would be really worried, oh, what's China doing? Are they going to cut off our water supply? Who's China's friend? We should try to be friends with their friends, because we'd be totally dependent on them for water. So the thing to remember for Egypt is Egypt always has to worry about other countries because it needs water that comes from those countries. It needs to fiddle in other countries' business. If you remember that word. It needs to get involved in what other countries are doing, make sure they're doing the right thing. The other thing to remember is the Nile is quite shallow, as you can see from these photos. There's really shallow points, not very deep. And that's perfect for damming the river. That means you block it up and there's no water can go through. So imagine you and me, we don't like Egypt. We want to get stuck into them. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to this shallow point in the river. We're going to block it. And then all the Egyptians are going to be out of water. No water to drink. Egypt, gone. So remember, Egypt is really worried about water. There's just one more thing to remember before we launch into Egypt itself. Egypt had an event in its history, which is really important to remember. It was conquered by this group of people called the Hyksos. That just means foreign kings. Now, these Hyksos were from Canaan, from sort of Israel area, and they came as immigrants. So they're friends, and eventually they conquered Egypt. Now, these people, they could have been maybe Joseph and Jacob's sons coming into Egypt. We don't know, but that could be who they are. Anyway, the important part, Egypt gets conquered by these foreigners for a time, and then eventually they throw them off. They get rid of the Hyksos, and Egypt is free again. But as a consequence, Egypt's always worried about foreign countries attacking it. Remember the Hyksos? Do you remember what happened? They came here, they took our land, they killed us. We can never let foreign countries come into Egypt again. We need to fiddle in other countries' business. We need to tell them what to do and send our army over there and be worried about what other people are doing to protect Egypt, to protect ourselves. It's similar to, if you remember, Philippines, the Japanese came for a time, and the Filipinos very bravely, along with the Americans, got rid of the Japanese. It's similar to that. And as a result, for a time, it was the same in Australia, people didn't like the Japanese. Oh, we're really worried they came here, they conquered us, we don't want to be conquered. It's similar, same thing for Egypt with the Hyksos. So this is the lesson. Egypt was always worried about Israel and other countries. What are they doing? Where are they? Because Egypt needed its water and it needed to be protected from foreign attackers. And that's going to be important for understanding the Bible and what the Bible tells us about Egypt. Now, just a little bit more, just for interest's sake. Some of you said you wanted to know what would have it been like if I lived in Egypt. There's just a few important things that help us understand Egypt and Egypt in the Bible. The first is the Pharaoh. So the Pharaoh was like king, boss, sort of like the John Elton, I suppose, of Egypt. He was like Sister Gemma Lagaska, telling everyone, go there, you, the big organizer. And Egyptians thought the Pharaoh, the king, was a god. So as one historian writes, it's on the screen, the king or the Pharaoh was at the head of the entire system. The Pharaoh was everything to you if you were an Egyptian. They were the ruler and they were a god. And as a result, Egypt's government, the way it ran, everything went through the Pharaoh. Pharaoh had to fiddle in everyone's business. Tick this box, tick this box. Yes, yes. No, that's not good. Do that again. Idiot, get that out of here. You know. So Egypt was really inefficient, really slow, because the Pharaoh had to make sure everything was running smoothly. In the Philippines, you maybe make jokes about the government. You know, the government's hopeless. They don't do anything. It's the same in Australia. We make jokes as well. And it was the same in Egypt and the same in the Bible. The Bible even makes a joke about how slow and inefficient, which means dumb, basically, how useless Egypt's government was. So the Bible in Isaiah says, the officials of Tanis, which was an Egyptian city, the officials of Tanis are nothing but fools. The wise counselors of Pharaoh give senseless advice. And this is a slight joke on our God's part about how useless Egypt's government was. The Pharaoh had to check everything. Anyway, so the point is, remember, for an Egyptian, your Pharaoh, which is your king, he is everything, the most important thing in your life. It might be similar to sort of football or basketball in the Philippines. Everyone goes crazy. Same here. Okay, the big question of tonight, did the Exodus happen? And we're just going to go through a few historical sources, that's evidence or proof to show, did it happen? Yes, it probably did. So why do people say the Exodus didn't happen? Let's just read a quote from a historian. So that's someone who studies history for a job. And they say, reading off the screen, it's no use asking the pharaohs to blazon, which means to say really loudly, blazon it, to blazon their defeat and loss of a top chariot squadron on the temple walls for all to see. this is in reference to what happened with Moses. It's no use looking for administrative registers, giving the Hebrews custom clearance, waving goodbye. See you, Hebrews, good luck on your journey. And the point here is the Egyptians aren't going to write a book telling us about the Exodus. They're not going to tell us about how the slaves, the Israelites under Moses, got away and the Pharaoh lost all these chariots in the Red Sea. They're not going to tell us because it makes them look bad. So I had this, I was playing football, soccer, and I kicked the winning goal and everyone, yeah. And I fell over this fence and smashed my nose. And anyway, I didn't tell anyone that we won because then they would ask, oh, what happened to your face? I was just, shh. It's the same with the Egyptians. They're not going to tell us about their defeats. Reading on, 99% of all New Kingdom papyri, that's the paper, are irrevocably lost in the sopping mud of the Nile, the river. Why would we expect to find the fleeting mud and reed homes of slaves? So again, what this historian is saying is, imagine the Egyptians did write a book. Maybe they did, saying, we used to have Hebrews here. There was a guy called Moses, but they went, we waved goodbye. Imagine they did write a book on that. It's paper. It's not going to survive 2,000 years. It's going to be lost in the mud of the delta or the river. It's going to disappear. And same with the houses the Hebrews lived in. They're going to be gone. So it's not surprising that there's no clear evidence of the Exodus. Now, what we want to do now is just look at a few pieces of evidence, a few historical sources, which suggest the Exodus did indeed happen. So the first one is on the screen. It's called the Prophecy of Nefertiti. And it's a story, like what you would read to your kid before bed, like a little children's book. So this was carved on a wall, so it's scraped in. And it complains that the eastern part of the Nile, the eastern side of the river, has become home to unruly Asiatics. That's a word we don't use. Israelites, read it as Israelites is how we would say it today. They came to Egypt for food. Now this reminds us of someone. Does anyone want to call out and guess who? Actually, I'll give you the answer. I'll be nice. This is, if you remember in Genesis, this is what Jacob and his sons came to Egypt for. They wanted food. There was a famine. And here we have someone saying that these people came from modern Israel and they wanted food. So it seems to suggest that the Bible, could be correct, could be accurate. It matches what the Bible says. Another example, this piece of evidence is called the Brooklyn Papyrus. So as you can see, that's what papyrus looks like. It's just looks like paper. And it's a medical text. So that means like a doctor would read it or a nurse. And it talks about household slaves. So Egyptians owned slaves. And this papyrus records their names. Who was his slave? Who was your slave? And most of these names are Hebrew names. So most of them are names like Benjamin, Miriam, Ahaz, names that we find in the Bible. So what's the point? It's another suggestion that there were Hebrews in Egypt, and they would have lived around the pharaohs. They would have lived in the desert that we talked about. They would have seen pyramids. So that's the suggestion that the Bible was accurate. if you look at the top part of this slide, so this is just another piece of evidence. It's called Merneptah, who was a pharaoh. He wrote this, and it references Israelites as a people. It says Israelite people, but it says that they are wanderers. So we think of the in the wilderness with Moses and Joshua, and they're walking all around. That's what this text is saying. The Israelite people wander in the desert, which confirms what we believe with the Bible. Now, if you look at the bottom half of this slide, this is a painting of immigrants coming into Egypt. And again, they look very Jewish. You can tell from the beards they have and the hair, the clothing. You can also tell from the animals. So they don't have any pigs with them. And remember, pigs were banned under the law of Moses. So here, it seems that, again, there's Jews coming into Egypt, that the Bible was correct. One other good reason is words. So if I spoke Tagalog, I'm not going to try, but if I did, you would think I was maybe from the Philippines, or that I'd been to the Philippines to learn Tagalog. And it's the same with the Bible. The Bible in Exodus uses a lot of Egyptian words, which suggests that the author of Exodus had been to Egypt, because how else would he know all the words? He didn't have the internet like we do. So that's, again, it seems like the Bible is quite accurate. And just on the right side of the screen, the picture, if you remember Moses, where he beats the Egyptian slave and he kills him, and then he buries the Egyptian man in the sand. And then Moses goes off to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, "I know what you've done," and chases Moses, and Moses flees away. Well, in that photo, that's exactly what we have. It's graffiti, and it's of an Egyptian prince beating an Egyptian man. And you think, why? Where did that come from? Who got the idea to draw that? So it just suggests that, yeah, the Bible is accurate. One other thing we're going to do is we want to think, does the Bible, does knowing Egyptian history help with the detail in the Bible? So if you'd like to turn up to Exodus chapter 1, I'll just give you a few seconds to turn that up. Exodus chapter 1 and verse 15. Okay, so Exodus 1 and verse 15. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, "When you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live." Now just notice that word birth stool. It literally means stone. And that's what we find in these images. These are Egyptian drawings. And you've got women giving birth on birth stools. And the point is that the Bible knows these really detailed parts of Egyptian history. So it seems that the Bible is written by someone who lived there, that someone who knew what was going on. In fact, if we read what this historian says, again, a historian is someone who studies history for a job. They say, at birth, a mattress and a stool were arranged, were put in the area And at delivery of the baby, only female helpers were present, not doctors. Peasant women would call 2 women either from their household or neighbors to help. That's exactly what we find in the Bible. They use a birth stool, and there's 2 women, Tifra and Pua, in verse 15. So the detail matches. Let's look at some more examples from ancient Egyptian society. So I've got the quote on the screen. It says, God threw the Egyptian forces into a panic. This is when they're chasing Moses. He clogs the chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. Now, even in English, that what does that mean? How did that work? So you've got the Red Sea split open, Moses is walking through, and these chariots wheels get clogged. That means to like block. So here's something flying and it gets clogged, blocked. What does that mean? So what the Egyptians would do with their chariot wheels, you see in the photo, they would wrap leather around it. So imagine they're driving through the Red Sea, which is being split. The sand's going to be wet. So the leather is going to, here's the wet sand. The leather in the photo is going to soak the water up and it's going to go fat. So that's going to bog the wheel down of the chariot. So again, that Bible verse, very specific detail, but somehow it's accurate, which for us implies the Bible is reliable. It's a good source. It's not made up by someone, because this person clearly knows the intricate detail of ancient Egyptian society. Same with the golden calf. So on the left side of the screen, this is when they make the golden calf that says, make us gods who shall go before us. And Aaron made a golden calf and said, these are your gods, O Israel. Let me think about it. They've got one golden calf, but they're talking about gods, so there's multiple. So what's going on? What's this golden calf about? And why are they talking about multiple gods when there's only one? Reading the other side, temple statues and reliefs, as well as particular sacred animals, or special animals, like the Apis bull, they served as divine communicators. So here's the golden calf. It's going to talk to the gods for me. And that's showing again the Bible, remarkable detail. So these Israelites in the wilderness, they want to talk to the gods. They set up a golden calf, exactly what the Egyptians would do. It's incredible. So if we move on to the kings period, Israel and the kings, and think about going toward your question, was Egypt a place of safety, refuge, or was it an enemy? Was it dangerous? Let's just take a broad overview of the relationship between Egypt and the Jews when the kings were ruling Israel and Judah. So we see the things started really well with King Solomon. Let's turn to 1 Kings 3. So 1 Kings 3 says, Solomon made a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of Yahweh. So we see Solomon marries the king's daughter, marries Pharaoh's daughter, they make an alliance and everyone's happy. Hey, Egypt, our best friend. But what's really confusing if you turn to 2 Chronicles 12, so Solomon's son is Rehoboam, and Rehoboam's fighting an Egyptian. But you're just allies. What's changed? So we see 2 Chronicles 12, it says, when the rule of Rehoboam was established and he was strong, Rehoboam abandoned the law of Yahweh. He didn't want anything to do with God. And verse 2, in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, because he'd been unfaithful to Yahweh, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem with a big army. And if you read to verse 4, he took the fortified cities of Judah and came as far as Jerusalem. So we see for Solomon, Egypt is a friend. He marries the Pharaoh's daughter, but for Rehoboam, Egypt is an enemy. Egypt marches up, they attack us, they took everything. Egypt is fiddling, getting involved in Israel's affairs. Now, what was the Egyptian side of this story? Why the change from being an ally with Solomon to an enemy of Rehoboam? What's going on? So what happened, if we know the Egyptian side of the story, if we look at their historical sources, when Solomon was king, a priest was in charge of Egypt, and that's never good. The priest always served the king. The priest shouldn't be the king, Pharaoh. So there was this weak priest in charge called Pusenes III. He was this frail old character, and he was useless. He just made friends with everyone, so he didn't have to fight. And he gives his daughter to Solomon. Remember, the Egyptians are worried about water, and they're worried about foreign attack from the Hyksos, for example. So they get the general of the army, who's a guy called Shishak, and they say, you've got to be king. You've got to become Pharaoh. So Shishak does, becomes Pharaoh. He's feeling very important. Yes, I won. And to show how strong he is, he beats up Rehoboam. So he picks a fight with Israel just to show all the Egyptians, I'm the new Pharaoh. I'm going to protect you. Don't worry. So the point, just to show the Egyptian side of the story, we know that God brought Egypt up to attack Judah, absolutely. And how did he do that? How? By the sort of internal politics of Egypt, having this weak king and wanting to put General Shishak in charge. We see how our God is working with people. Just to go back one slide, what you see throughout throughout Israel's history is this jumping between enemy and ally. So in the reign of King Asa, again, Judah and Egypt are fighting each other, and then they're friends, and then they fight again, and then they're friends. And this goes on and on and on, and there's always this debate. Should we be friends with Egypt? No. Fight. Oh, Babylon's come, or Assyria's come. Okay, we're good friends with Egypt. Yes, we're good mates. Hello, yes, everything's nice. So we see this jumping back and forth, and we're almost out of time, but take a photo of this or note it down, and definitely go through these verses just to see the changing relationship. And the point, I suspect, is that Egypt was always a trial for Israel. God always gave them that difficulty to test Israel. Are you going to trust me, Israel, or are you going to trust Egypt? And the point being, you can't trust Egypt. As you see on the slide, they're your friend one minute, they hate you the next, whereas I, God, will always love you. I'll always be faithful to you. And the Bible uses an image to summarize what Egypt's like. It calls Egypt a broken reed. And it says it on at least 2 occasions, as noted on the screen, in Isaiah and in Ezekiel. It says, Egypt is a broken reed. Why do you rely on her, O Israel? And you think, what does this mean? What's this idea? A broken reed. So I've got this to demonstrate just as we wrap up. So here is one Australian stick, very strong. And if you're walking along the street, you're Egyptian, here's my stick, and you're walking high, and you fall. And then you're a broken reed. So it's this idea of you lean on this walking stick and it lets you down and you fall over and bang, ow. Yeah, you get the idea. The other thing, Egypt, one of its main businesses was to make walking sticks. So make these really nice, beautiful, top dollar walking sticks. And so the Bible is having a dig, sort of mocking Egypt's economy, what it made money with. Your walking sticks are broken, they're useless. No one wants them, Egypt, because it was common for Egypt to make and sell walking sticks. So to end, what are the lessons for us looking at ancient Egypt? It's fascinating to look at the society, and we can do that a lot more. As a history teacher, I love that. But at the end of the day, what's our God trying to teach us? So here in 2 Kings, I'll just read the verse. The king of Assyria found treachery in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt. What's the point? The point is, here's a king, a Jewish king, who trusts in Egypt. And it doesn't work. Hoshea is killed, he loses the throne, and the Israelites go into captivity. And again, we see this same problem. Then all the people, this is after Jerusalem's destruction, both great and small, and the captains of the forces arose and went to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Babylonians. So again, the Jews are trusting in Egypt. It was this constant problem. Trust in Egypt. Egypt will fix our problems, not God. And again, we won't read it, but just the 3rd verse, showing that the Jews had this constant difficulty. They looked to Egypt as their solution and not their God. And that is the main lesson for us. There's things in our world that we might want to trust in, that we might want to feel safe by. Maybe it's medicine, or maybe you love basketball, or the Los Angeles Lakers, whatever it is. And it was the same for Israel. They always looked to Egypt. Egypt will protect us. And God said, Egypt's a broken reed. Egypt will never look after you. But I, your God, will always be there. I will always take care of you. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. I hope that's been all right. And thank you so much for your attention.